And we're back now with our Powerhouse Roundtable, joined by Greta Van Susteren of Fox News, Representatives Donna Edwards of Maryland, Aaron Schock of Illinois. I think you're still the youngest member
still for
of
now.
Congress, at least for now. That's right. Katrina vanden Heuvel of The Nation, Paul Gigot of The Wall Street Journal. Let's talk about this big surprise that came out on Friday, General Petraeus having to resign. Greta, we heard from Pierre Thomas earlier and the Senator Chambliss that this investigation seems to have played itself out. Where else does this go?
Well, if he's called as a witness to testify before Senator Chambliss said that he might have to testify at some point on Capitol Hill. I'm an old-time criminal defense lawyer. When I heard this, and just to speak as old-time criminal defense lawyer, the thing I worried about is whether or not in any sort of investigation when he got the job, if he said anything that would in any way jeopardize him at all criminally. That's worst-case scenario. Defense lawyers always freak out.
That's why I asked Senator Chambliss the question, because I thought that in the course of a background investigation to CIA director, you might get a question about.
And remember what happened to Martha Stewart? She was investigated for insider trading, never charged with that. She was charged with lying to a federal officer.
But we have no evidence that he has lied.
I'm not saying. I'm saying, as an old-time criminal defense lawyer, that's the first thing I worry about is the background check. That's where the red flag went up with me. You know,
you hear Paul Gigot, so many people saying now, oh, there might have been concerns, we might have thought about this, but this was so stunning to so many people.
Sure, it was, because I've gotten to know him professionally and a little bit socially over the years, and he's a very cautious man. I mean, he's very shrewd politically. He knew how to operate in Washington. So this is a stunning, mistake in judgment. That I think surprised an awful lot of people, and it's a loss for the country. He served his country, salvaged Iraq for the country. By all accounts, was doing a good job at the CIA. Now robs the president of one of his, I think, more seasoned advisors on national defense at a time when other people are leaving. So it's a real problem that we're losing him. But it's a lapse of judgment that's surprising. And the Gmail account, the private Gmail account that apparently Paula Broadwell had access to, I think raises real security questions.
It certainly does. And even General Petraeus had said, I think in one of his rules for living, someone is always watching. But, you know, Senator Dianne Feinstein said at the start that she wished he hadn't resigned. She may have amended that. He had no choice, right?
I think so, particularly coming out of the military as he did. This would have been something that he would have cost his command in the military, and I think he didn't have any choice.
Now, Katrina, I know that you don't agree with a lot of what Paul's judgment
well, I mean,
on
I think this
General
is a
Petraeus'
personal.
career.
I really think this is a personal matter. You know, it's a tragedy for the family, but I do think it's kind of interesting to watch the coverage because there is such veneration for General Petraeus. You'd think that the worst thing the CIA has ever done is engage in an extramarital affair. I think General Petraeus was the architect of a failed counterinsurgency program. And I think that it's time for our media to pay a little less attention to personal scandals and more to scandals or concerns like that. And also the escalation of the drone war, which General Petraeus at the CIA made a big part of his portfolio. These are issues that Americans deserve to know more about, and we don't get as much coverage.
When you're talking about the failure, you're talking about Afghanistan or Iraq?
Talking about Iraq as well. I think there's a view that he, because of the counterinsurgency, but it was really bargaining with the Sunnis. I mean, we can relitigate that history, but it was bargaining with the Sunnis, and certainly the counterinsurgency in Afghanistan has not proven to be effective. And he had moved before he resigned to counterterrorism, which we can argue, I think, is going to fuel a backlash, which is not going to make this country more secure.
He gave that statement he went to Capitol Hill on September 14th and gave the video protest as the explanation for what happened in Benghazi, when 2 days earlier his station chief on the ground in Libya said that it was not a result of a protest. So you've got very inconsistent statements. So he's going to have to answer to those.
He certainly will have to answer. And the other thing, one of the other interesting twist here, Congressman Schock, it turns out that an FBI whistleblower actually went to your number two in the House, right, Congressman Eric Cantor, and said there were concerns there that this was being covered up and wasn't being brought to the White House. Similar concerns have been raised by your colleague, Congressman Peter King. Do you have them?
Well, I think we're going to find out more. I mean, right now it's all speculation. We don't know even when the affair began whether or not some of the questions he was asked during his vetting process he may have been untruthful for. It's obviously a tragedy. I mean, he was well respected by the Bush administration, rewarded by the Obama administration, and it's going to make for a little more exciting lame duck season.
Any concerns with how this is handled?
Well, no. I mean, I think that General Petraeus, this is a personal flaw, and I think he was actually required to resign. You can't have that kind of infidelity come forward and raise national security concerns and intelligence concerns. On the flip side, though, I do think that the CIA will have the capacity and will be able to respond to questions on Capitol Hill regarding Benghazi, and I think those are actually two very separate things. And we will get to the oversight on Benghazi and Libya over these next several weeks, and then General Petraeus will have a chance to put his life together separate and apart from his service.
It could create complications for President Obama as he puts together his national security team, though. I want to put up a chart right now showing we already know that Secretary of State Clinton was planning on leaving, Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense, planning on leaving. You know the Secretary of Treasury is going as well, perhaps the Attorney General and the White House Chief of Staff. Greta, this is one hole the president didn't expect to have in January.
But yeah, of course he didn't expect to have it, but this is also quite a serious matter. I mean, this is the guy who's in charge of intelligence, and this was, if you look at Benghazi, this was an act of terrorism on 9/11, and here's the most important person in our intelligence community, and everyone says, well, it's a personal problem, it's a personal problem. Well, the problem is it's a personal problem with someone who's extremely important, and we don't know to what extent it may have jeopardized or made him vulnerable. I'm not the least suspicious he did anything wrong vis-a-vis the American government, American people, but it is not unreasonable to be very suspicious that we don't have all the information.
You know, I think the relationship between President Obama and General Petraeus has been a rocky one. Don't forget that over at your network at Fox, he was your candidate for a while. I mean, he was going to be the Republican candidate. So I don't think this is
may have been a factor in why he was made CIA director.
You keep your foes close. But I also think that there are many people who could fill this hole, and I just wish that there is a different approach to foreign policy, a less militarized one that emphasizes political solutions and diplomacy.
Your problem maybe with the president, though, not with General Petraeus. Go ahead, Paul.
With the team. For the many journalists at our news organization, we have very many world-renowned journalists, Jennifer Griffin, Catherine Harrington. When you say your candidate over at your network, let me just say that there are a lot of people who work really hard. And I think you're probably speaking for some of our conservative people like Sean
Paul, as you go.
There's also the question I think we need to find out is when did the FBI really start to know about this, and how high up did it go?
Several months, we believe.
Presumably the FBI director knew, presumably the Attorney General knew. Did they tell the White House counsel's office? It's awfully convenient.
And the judge who might have signed a warrant to get these records?
Awfully convenient to be told on Tuesday at 5 p.m. of Election Day, which is the story now. It's just, frankly, it doesn't pass the smell test.
And that's why I asked Senator Chambliss about that as well. He insists he was not told until Friday, but we do have this evidence that at least some whistleblower had come to Congressman Cantor before that. We have a lot more to talk about.